Like, I wish I could give myself a concussion and play that game again.
We could try.
Okay, get the bricks, Richard. All your dreams are coming true. You get to beat me up with bricks.
Oh, that's not my dream at all.
Yet. It's a couple more podcasts. Okay.
Okay.
Do an intro, Richard.
What kind of intro?
I don't know. We've discussed it every time we do a podcast. I get progressively lazier and lazier, and you have to do more and more work. So figure it out, bro.
I slept for 4 hours, so I can't. I don't know if I'm in a state to come up with an intro.
Okay, great intro, buddy. Thank you very much.
That's a good intro, thank you.
It's good enough. It's better than one I make, which is nothing.
Knowing you, like, that exchange is going to be played at the start of the video with that do music under it. Of, like, a completely unrelated image of, like, a cake or something.
I guess we could start with Maneater Mildred.
Alright. Do you remember Maneater Mildred from Dark Souls? Did you ever encounter her?
Yeah, I remember she scared the crap out of me.
Have you encountered the proto Maneater Mildred who is in Demon Souls?
The Executioner?
No, there's another one.
No, I haven't. Who's that?
Okay. In Valley of Defilement, the second part of Valley of Defilement, if you just sort of wander around, there is part of the map where there is a Black Phantom that has it's a female Black Phantom that's got the meat cleaver weapon. And she's wearing like the just one armor piece, which is like the witch's dress, but not the rest of that set. And she runs around the swamp.
Maybe I have encountered her. I think I have. She killed me a few times.
Yeah, it's the second part of Valley of Defilement is pretty big, so some people miss her. Maneater Mildred in Dark Souls is a like callback to that character. Apparently the genesis of that character is that someone who was testing the game just decided it would be funny to repeatedly invade Valley of Defilement as as a woman with a meat cleaver. And they liked it so much they left it in the game. She doesn't really have any kind of like rationale behind her existence. The Black Phantom in Demon Souls. She's got the Adjudicator's weapon, just the meat cleaver, and she drops Faint Stone, which is the like blessed upgrade material. But I don't know why she's there. She just sort of is.
Is that lady a cannibal?
Well, she becomes a cannibal in Dark Souls when they kind of reinvent her as Maneater Mildred. That's why she's called Maneater, because she's a cannibal.
I like how you had to explain this to me. She's called a man-eater because she eats people, as indicated by her name.
There's slightly more of a backstory to her, though.
Okay, what is it?
You know, when you're on the way to Blighttown after you beat the Capra demon, there's the butcher enemies. They're like these big.
Yes.
Yeah, she's meant to be one of those.
Okay.
But as a player. So the idea is that she is, because she's got the sack and she's got the meat cleaver. So the idea is that she is one of those, and she's just down in Blighttown instead of up in the depths.
How come?
I don't really know what the story is, but that's who she's supposed to be. There's like 3 of them, and 2 of them are in the depths, and 1 of them is down in Blighttown.
But she's wearing a different attire than the butcher, so...
Yeah, because you can't... The butcher model isn't the player model, so you can't accurately copy it. So in order to make her someone you could invade and summon, they had to make her based on a player model. Miyazaki confirmed that the butchers in the depths area, they're all supposed to be women. They're like cannibal women. Yeah. They're going to eat Laurentius.
I was about
when
to
you
ask
rescue
you
Laurentius
about
from the
that.
barrel. Yeah, I think he outright says like she's going to cook me or something. Like he confirms that he's in the barrel because she's going to cook him later on. So she's like, they're weird swamp cannibals, I guess.
So who are they cooking for?
I think just themselves.
Just themselves? And they don't share with the hollows that chill there?
They might be eating the hollows.
Oh my god!
They might be cooking for the Capra demon because he's up top. They might be like throwing him stuff.
Yeah, that's nice, I guess.
They seem nice. They have a dog.
Good point.
They possibly ate a blacksmith
What?
because there's the large ember in the room
Oh
with
my
them.
god.
But like that, I don't know if it's meant to be that they ate a blacksmith or that that ember is meant to be the thing that's being used by them as a source of heat to cook with. That like they're using that as a stove and you've stolen their stove.
Maybe it's both.
Yeah. Because there's no real blacksmith in that area.
But there's only like 2 blacksmiths in the entire game.
No, there's more than 2. And you tend to find like embers in places where there would have been a blacksmith.
Okay, wait, there's more than 2. No, Richard, I'm gonna hold you accountable. There's Andre,
Okay.
there's Tentacle Face, and then there's Giant. 3.
And Rickett.
Who's that?
He's a blacksmith in New Londo.
Really?
Yeah.
I've been to New Londo. I didn't see a blacksmith.
He's kind of hard to find. He's on a cliff edge where you just want to avoid going because you might fall off and die.
Well, I'm going to check it out because you've been making a lot of mistakes lately, so I'm gonna have to verify it myself.
It's possible I'm just hallucinating that character because there is a blacksmith called Rickett in Berserk, and maybe my brain is just going, well, obviously if it's in Berserk, it must be in Dark Souls.
That's quite possible.
There's like 2 original ideas in the whole series.
You're being kind of generous there.
No, Rickett is the blacksmith in New Londo, and he's like a mage blacksmith. So he does magic upgrades, and he sells you some low-level spells.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start as a sorcerer, it's advantageous to go to New Londo, because you can get some stuff off Rickett early on and get like 2 copies of Soul Arrow.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I was saying, the embers in the game tend to be found where there would have been a blacksmith. So like there's an ember past the Moonlight Butterfly, and you find it in the... It's either a corpse or it's petrified. Yeah.
True.
Yeah, it looks like Andre's model and it's holding it. And I don't know if it's meant to be a dead body or the blacksmith turned to stone. But and Andre says like there's a divine blacksmith past the woods or something like. He like explicitly says there's a blacksmith there.
Right.
And then like the large divine one is in the catacombs, and like I think that's the same thing. Like the room you find it in has anvils and tools and things in it. So presumably that was another blacksmith's room. So the large ember it might have been from a blacksmith.
Mm-hmm.
That like there may have been a blacksmith in the depths or Blighttown, and they may have killed him and got the ember from that.
They're all wearing sacks on their head.
Yeah.
And I think it's said that the sacks are quite comfortable, though not very good in terms of defense.
I upgraded mine to +10.
So is a sack a fashion statement?
I did a Maneater Mildred build.
Why?
I can't remember exactly why, but I played through until I could get the cleaver and the sack, and then I just upgraded both of those to +10, didn't change my armor for the rest of the game.
Were you invading people and terrifying them? Was it psychological warfare?
It was the opposite, because I got through to New Game Plus, and then I just camped out in Undead Parish. Because that's where low-level people invade to try to kill other low-level people. So I just sat there, and I over-leveled. I was like level 150. And I summoned Solera and Lautrec. And we just hung out. I killed everything in the parish, and we just hung out in the middle of it, and people kept invading, like, these shitty, like, low-level pyromancy builds, trying to, like, spam combustion. And they just could not do anything, because it was 3, like, really high-level characters, which they were not expecting. And eventually, like, one guy invaded me, I think 4 times in a row. Because he was trying to catch, like, low-level characters trying to beat the gargoyles. And at one point, he realized he kept invading me, and he just hid.
Oh.
So he invaded me and just like ran off and hid behind a wall and wouldn't come out.
Well, did you learn your lesson?
Did he learn his
No,
lesson?
did you learn your lesson? He clearly checkmated you there.
I don't care. As long as he's not invading other people, it doesn't matter.
I see. You know what I see? I thought it was really mean of you, but you're actually doing people a
Yeah,
favor.
I'm protecting it. Yeah, that's the point. I'm like,
Ah.
it's like a fly trap. I'm like the honey pot, and I'm because Dark Souls. I don't know if they kept this, but like Dark Souls 1, the invasion range was just your level and up. There wasn't a maximum.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be level 1, you could invade someone who is level 200. So that's what I was relying on, that people were invading an undead parish, because that's kind of the first place you can hope to catch people.
Okay.
So they were invading an undead parish trying to catch
Aw.
low-level players on the way to the gargoyles, and they just kept getting me, and I just one-shot them. Throw poop at them.
What a beautiful story.
Thank you.
um,
There's another... They kind of bring Mildred back in Dark Souls
2.
3.
No, they bring her back
Oh, yeah.
in 2.
Yeah, but in both, yeah.
Could you talk
What's
about...
she called in 2? Melinda the Butcher in 2.
Yeah. Could you talk about Melinda the Butcher in Dark Souls 2?
She has no backstory. She is just what if Maneater Mildred again. A lot of the invading phantoms in Dark Souls 2 don't have like a real story. It's just, wouldn't it be cool if this thing happened? And it does. Because she's Melinda the Butcher because she's like, it's a butcher again. And she's in the gutter, which is a Blighttown-like area. So they're just like, she's back again.
Oh. But you know the Rotten? You can get a butcher's knife from his soul, right?
Yeah, same way that the one in Demon Souls has the Adjudicator's weapon.
What does that mean?
I think it just means that... I think in Demon Souls, it doesn't mean really anything. Because they just thought it was a funny idea for a character, that there's just this, like, random woman with a meat cleaver stalking you through a swamp. The idea is, like, the Adjudicator has a meat cleaver because the Adjudicator eats people.
Does he?
Yeah.
But he has no face.
Aren't we talking about the Adjudicator later on?
Yes.
Like, I'll save it for then.
Okay.
Okay. I don't think anyone has a... There's no, like, Adjudicator equivalent in Dark Souls 1 at all. But Dark Souls 2, like, the Rotten is basically just the Adjudicator with some different attacks.
No, but wouldn't the Rotten be the Leech boss from Demon Souls?
I mean, in terms of moveset, like, he's a very slow boss that... His attacks are like, it's a series of swings with a big knife that are quite easy to dodge. But he's not as cool because he doesn't have a bird on his head. He actually... No, he has a similar thing, because one of his little corpses sticks out the top.
Yeah.
And you can, like, damage that separately, and if you cut it off, you get a Pharos Lockstone. But yeah, the Adjudicator is much cooler than the Rotten.
But why does the Rotten give you a butcher's knife?
I honestly don't know.
Maybe the Rotten is a butcher.
Maybe.
Maybe the Rotten ate a butcher.
Rotten is a lot of things, because it's a lot of different people stuck together.
Maybe it's just butchers stuck together.
Maybe. So then, in Dark Souls 3, they kind of bring Mildred back, because there's a hostile NPC you encounter on the Road of Sacrifices.
Yeah, the Madwoman?
Yeah, it's just a mad woman with
a pointy hat.
There's no sack. That's why Dark Souls 3 is the worst in the series, because there is no sack. She has the regular pointy worker's hat, and she has a machete, and she encounters you there, and she fights you.
And she's wearing...
And that's like a callback. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
And she's near... She's kind of near the Blighttown equivalent, in that she's like an area away from Farron Keep, which
right.
is... Yeah.
She's also wearing the Master's clothing, right?
Yeah, she's wearing rags, yeah.
Okay. Why doesn't she have a sack?
Because there's no sack in Dark Souls 3. They didn't add it.
Why not?
Maybe it's like a dummied out item and it has a whole lot of really important lore attached to it. Like it explains everything. The entire story outline is the description of the sack. And eventually we'll figure out how to mod it back in and the game will make sense.
Lenses on it. You know, I actually have a potato sack dress.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's like a blue dress and I wear it with a red scarf. And it's like a fancy potato sack. It's really cute and it has like giant pockets in front and I could fit like 50 potatoes in those pockets.
That's beautiful.
I know, right?
Should there be a potato covenant?
Oh my god, yes! Because potatoes, you can use it for food. You can probably make bread out of it. You can make vodka. Potatoes are life, man.
Yep. That's the new crafting system in Dark Souls 4. It's just everything is potatoes.
You see, Dark Souls 4 doesn't look so bad all of a sudden.
I know. Did you see that fake Dark Souls 4 screenshot someone made where it was Dark Souls 4, but the Roman numeral for 4 was 4 eyes instead of IV?
No.
That was the first tip off it wasn't true.
Maybe they were like trying to make it deep, like eyes, you know, like an eye, like in Bloodborne.
Yeah.
So they were trying to merge Bloodborne and Dark Souls.
I would have had Dark Souls, but the A in Dark is a 4.
What? That's so lame.
I know.
I would have had Dark Souls, but the A in Dark would have been 4 eyes.
Oh. Dark Souls.
That sounds very Australian. Okay. Oh, I wanted to ask you something.
Yeah.
Executioner Meralda.
Yeah.
She's not a cannibal in any way related to that stuff.
Well, she's a similar kind of character in that she's a woman wearing like a strange kind of sack, and she has a huge double-handed axe. But she's just the royal executioner of Boletaria.
Yeah, because when I saw her for the first time, she reminded me of those man-eating ladies.
Yeah.
But in White Tendency, she drops the Master's Ring. But
yeah,
Dark Souls 3 Madwoman wears the same thing as the Master wears.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's up with that?
There's a lot of implications there.
Piece of shit.
I like Meralda's armor set because it's called the Binded Cross.
Yeah.
Which sounds kind of cool, and then you realize it's just meant to be bound cloth.
Really?
And they translate it because they probably sound the same if you write them out phonetically in Japanese, like kurosu.
Oh no.
So
that's some cool lore right there.
Also, like the armor that Bjor wears is called brushwood armor, which sounds like, oh, this is some exotic kind of material in Boletaria called brushwood. Mm-hmm. It's actually just brass and wood armor. But I prefer brushwood. I think it sounds cooler.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree. I thought you had something super enlightening to say about
Mildred.
Yeah.
I think we've gone on about Mildred for a while. That was like 20 minutes.
Really? Oh, god damn it, Richard.
I mean, it's probably about 4 minutes that can be salvaged. But do we want to talk about how if you beat Mildred as a invading phantom, you can then summon her as a co-op against Quelag?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay, yeah. All right, this is kind of interesting because a lot of the bosses, if you follow like Quelag down through Demon Ruins, a bunch of those bosses are completely immune to fire damage, right? Because they're all Firemon. So Quelag can't be hurt with fire. And like Ceaseless Discharge can't be hurt with fire. I think Demon Fire Sage can just about be hurt with fire, but not really.
Ceaseless Discharge can be hurt with fire. You just gotta cut his hand, bro.
No, that's more that he's hurt by the fall into the fire.
Into the fire, so he's hurt by the fire he falls into.
Yeah, but I imagine he would have been killed if he'd fallen into anything from that height. Like he could have fallen into some water. Could have fallen if there wasn't like a truck full of mattresses. He probably would have been killed regardless.
Yeah, now pull my dick, mate.
As I was saying, as I was saying, the game is designed with that in mind because it's possible if you created a pyromancer that you would hit a wall there, like you wouldn't be able to do it because those monsters are immune to fire. So what happens is they give you Mildred as a summon for Quelaag because Mildred is strong enough that she can beat Quelaag on her own.
Really?
Yeah, and she's very, very, very fire resistant. I think that's just to get around the AI being bad because when Quelaag vomits lava, Mildred can just stand in it and it barely hurts her.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So if you get stuck on Quelaag and you're a pyromancer, you summon Mildred. And Mildred will just solo Quelaag for you. So it's like a fail-safe.
Nice.
And then all the way through that keeps going for the next couple of bosses. So like Ceaseless Discharge, the way you can one-shot him by making him fall off the cliff. That means if you're a pyromancer, you can just do it that way without having to worry about you can't damage him. And then Demon Fire Sage can be skipped entirely if you join the Chaos Servants, which you'd want to do if you were a pyromancer. So the whole journey down from Quelaag through to Bed of Chaos has all these built-in things designed to let you pass it if you exclusively do fire damage.
That's really cool.
It is really cool, and I don't see it commented on much, but it's a really nicely done piece of design.
Go on.
That's all. That's basically it for Mildred.
What if I say go on again? Is something going to come to you?
I don't know what else there is to...
Because sometimes it works. It's like 2 go-ons in a row, and then you come up with 20 more minutes of subjects.
Here's one, right. I just kind of thought of it then, because I was like going through, like, what happens in Blighttown? Have you ever gotten Laurentius killed?
No.
Okay. This is a spoiler for Dark Souls, but that game is now 7 years old, so whatever. You know Quelana in Blighttown? In Quelaag. She's like the high-level pyromancy teacher. She's in the swamp at the base of Blighttown. If you talk to her and then you go back and talk to Laurentius, he asks you, like, oh, where did you learn this pyromancy? I've never seen anything like it. And you can elect to tell him about Quelana. If you tell him about Quelana, when you go down to Blighttown again, he's disappeared and he's reappeared in the swamp as a hollow.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So it's possible that maybe Mildred got him because he was going to be eaten by the butchers to begin with.
Aww.
So maybe like him appearing as a hollow is them finally catching up with him and having some tasty Laurentius.
Poor guy. That's sad.
Yeah.
But you can't outrun destiny, right?
I think you can in Dark Souls. He just couldn't.
Just not him.
I remember my first Dark Souls character, I tried doing pyromancy and I managed to get him and Aingi killed.
Aww.
So I was like just fucked and had to give up on it and do something else.
I remember on my first Dark Souls playthrough, and on every Dark Souls playthrough, I go with swords and not pyromancy and magic because I'm not a casual Richard.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I'm still stuck at the Four Kings.
Yeah, this is going to be a problem.
It's been 8 months.
Do you know how I beat the Four Kings on my first try? Like...
Tell me.
It was ridiculous. I just cast... There's like a spell that creates these homing orbs around you that then home in on the nearest enemy, and I just cast that and rolled into them. So all the orbs went off and then I'd roll back again and cast it again. So I was just like rolling into them, the orbs would hit them, then I'd really quickly roll back and cast the orbs again, and it was ridiculous looking. That's how I did it. Yeah. That's also how I killed Gwyn on my first playthrough.
You killed Gwen? Why would you kill Gwen?
Well, I had to beat the game.
You telling me you found our Lord and Savior and you killed him?
Well, we've had this discussion before. Because when you enter New Game Plus, everyone comes back to life again. So there are no real lasting consequences for doing that.
Well, thank God.
Did I tell you? Once I was on the Dark Souls Reddit and someone was asking if there was a way to replace Gwyn with a 3D model of Eminem that they'd made.
No, you never told me that.
Well, that was like in the Ask About PC Modding thread. So I've got a 3D model of Eminem. Is there a way to replace Gwyn with this so that when you enter the kiln you have to fight Eminem?
That is kind of brilliant.
It still makes more sense than Soul of Cinder.
Oh, sick burn! Maybe that's what we're gonna get in the remaster.
Maybe.
Do you think anything is going to change in the remaster?
Well, what they're doing, my understanding is that, like, they're not so much remastering it as they're just porting all of Dark Souls 3's assets and mechanics over to Dark Souls 1's assets and mechanics to the engine they used for Dark Souls 3. Because those engines from Demon Souls onward have just been like, it's the same engine, they just keep adding to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's backwards compatible, which is why there's like Dark Souls text and items and things in Bloodborne, because it's just the same engine. They just shove the same stuff in there. And so, like, if they're doing it that way, then I'm wondering if it's going to affect, like, the way you move, or like because in Dark Souls 3 you move a lot faster and you have much finer degree of control over what direction you move in and stuff. Like, it's much easier to do precision navigation in that. Whereas going back to Dark Souls 1 after 3, like, you're kind of locked to sort of 8-directional movement. And things like the rafters in Anor Londo are a lot more difficult. Because you have less fine control and you're more likely to accidentally walk off the edge. So I'm wondering if they port Dark Souls 1 over to Dark Souls 3's engine, if that's going to carry over and we're going to have that same degree of fine control. And maybe more... It makes me wonder if the bosses are going to start playing out differently if we can suddenly move differently. Because so much of that is about... Like, it's a much slower game than 2 or 3.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you started moving at the pace of 3, then maybe certain bosses would be a lot easier.
That would be pretty sweet.
Yeah. Going back to 1 after 2 and 3, it's like, this is really not that difficult. Like, barely anything has any HP in comparison to... Have you seen that Reddit thread where it ranks the HP of every single boss in the series?
I think so, a while back.
And it's almost a perfect correlation with what game it's in. Like, all the low HP bosses are in Dark Souls 1, and then as you get to 2 they get higher, and 3 they get even higher. I think the most hit points of anything is like Midir in 3 in the Ring City.
Oh, that piece of shit.
Yeah, and Lawrence is there. The thing is, a lot of Bloodborne bosses have obnoxiously high hit points, but in Bloodborne you do more damage. Like, the attack ratings are much, much higher, so it's not as bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 I haven't beaten Midir yet either.
Well, just cast Pestilent Mercury.
I have swords, I'm not a casual.
I think there comes a point where you ask yourself, like, is this worth it?
Do you want me to betray my values, Richard? Is that what you're teaching me right now?
What if Dark Souls 3 is what betrayed your values?
Oh, mind blown.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think like it's fine to just say fuck it when it's something like Medea, which is just here's a gigantic battle of attrition.
I like how he shoots
With
lasers.
I don't.
It's because it's like I come in and then he shoots a laser and I'm dead. I'm like, well, that was a fun fight. Thank you, Meteor. I appreciate it.
You can summon Patches for him.
Patches? Really?
Yeah,
Oh.
if you complete Patches' questline, he's summonable for Medea. And he has a ton of hit points. He's like really, really tough.
Oh, yeah?
But it gives Medea 50% extra hit points.
Okay, how about fuck that shit?
Yeah. The way you beat Medea is just to spam. There's a spell called Pestilent Mercury. If you want to beat Medea, you just spam a bunch of Pestilent Mercury, and because he doesn't move much, he just sits in it until it kills him.
Did you just say Mercury?
Mercury.
Listen, I'm trying to beat Meteor, not to impregnate him, okay?
Okay.
Get it? Because Mercury is associated with Odin and Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Yeah? So that was a
Yeah.
good one.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can tell you liked it by the enthusiasm that you are expressing right now.
I don't have very much enthusiasm about Medea.
All right, so that was
That was Maneater Mildred and like 10 completely unrelated digressions.
well, thank you, Richard, as usual.
That's very. Thank you. Thank you, Sinclair.